I think it's safe to say House of the Dragon has reignited the Game of Thrones fanbase once again as we move into the finale of Season 1. In the previous episode we focused on Team Green as we saw Aegon become king, and now in this episode we focus on Team Black. The episode begins looking at that pretty cool map table in Dragonstone, and if they don't make that as like a merchandise item, they're really missing out there. Anyway, away from the table, and Luke talks to his mother Rhaenyra about not wanting Driftmark, says he's not up for it. And not long after this, Rhaenys arrives in Dragonstone to spread the news to Rhaenyra and Daemon about the king's death, and also alert them about what the Greens have been up to. And with Emma Darcy, who plays Rhaenyra, I wasn't so sure about them in episode 6, but as the episodes have gone along, I've really started to enjoy this portrayal of the character. I think this took a little bit of time to get used to it after the Millie Alcock one. And I mention this because I thought the expression on Rhaenyra's face was perfect as she received the news, and then we see her then go into labour. In what has been quite a season of childbirths, we have no one here, but unfortunately for Rhaenyra, she pulls out her stillborn baby. Everyone then gathers around for the cremation of the baby, and then Sir Eric arrives with the crown, and Rhaenyra becomes the Black Queen. Around the table, Rhaenyra and the council talk about how to take on the Greens, and it's mentioned how they have dragons to their advantage in terms of the number. Daemon then lists the dragons in their control, and he mentions Meleys as one of them, and I liked how the camera then just pans over to Rhaenys to see her reaction, like, oh, is that so? My dragon's one of yours now. They then get told that Otto has arrived in Dragonstone to try and strike up a deal to avoid any potential war. And there's no love lost between Otto and Daemon, and I think it'd be interesting to see how these characters progress in the next season, because they now have people close to them in the position they want them to be in. With Daemon, that he has Rhaenyra, where he can try and pull her strings, but she's not so easily swayed. And then we also have Otto, where he's going to try to do the same with Aegon, and he looks like he's going to be a bit more easy to manipulate. Rhaenyra really is her father's daughter as she tries to keep everything under control, whereas Daemon wants to unleash on the Greens right now. Rhaenyra tells Daemon that the prophecy of a Song of Ice and Fire is still very much in her mind when deciding what to do next. And we find out two things, one being that Daemon never got told by Viserys about the prophecy when he was effectively heir, and also that Rhaenyra and Daemon have yet to talk about the prophecy at all, which is kind of surprising. Also in this scene, Daemon strangles Rhaenyra and tells her that dreams didn't make us kings, dragons did. And Daemon is a character who has this darkness inside of him. I mean, this is a character who smashed up one of his ex-wife's heads. And he's someone who has to have control of the situation. Like we saw in the earlier episodes when he went to the brothel with Rhaenyra and she was trying to dominate that whole situation. He just left because, he's not having that. Also, something I've yet to mention is that during that meeting with Otto on the bridge, Rhaenyra receives a page from a book from Alicent, and the book in question is one they were talking about in episode 1, when they were dreaming about eating carrot cake and that sort of thing. So I think that was there for Alicent to remind Rhaenyra that, look how it used to be and now look where we are. Corlys returns from his battle in the Stepstones, and Rhaenys gives him basically a recap of all what's happened since he's been gone. Corlys says he's against the Hightower treason and pledges his fleet to Rhaenyra. Rhaenyra needs to confirm the support she has and know exactly who her allies are, so she wants to send out ravens to Winterfell and to Storm's End, for example, but Jacaerys says why not send dragons there quicker? So she sends Luke to Storm's End and Jacaerys up north. And during this moment I was thinking to myself, is this really the brightest idea? Because at the start of the episode, Rhaenys told you, Rhaenyra, that the Greens are coming for you and your children, and then Otto also told Rhaenyra that there's discussing terms with the Baratheons as well as the Starks, so they're already involved there, so is this really the best time to make your kids postman Pat? Anyway, Rhaenyra has faith they'll both be okay, so they fly out and we see Luke land in Storm's End. And in the courtyard we see Vhagar towering over the wall, and I thought this was a really amazing shot because it kind of reminded me a little bit of like Jurassic Park in that way, where we see the T-Rex and it really does give you that sort of sense of scale. Luke hands over the message from Rhaenyra to Boros Baratheon, but he's left unimpressed. He wants a proper deal from this side, especially with Aemon being there striking up a decent deal for him already. Aemon wants to fight Luke there, and then but Boros is like, you're not getting blood on my carpet, so if you want to do any of that, you can take it outside. So what follows is a dragon chase sequence in the rain as Aemon tries to intimidate Luke. This ain't no Han or Greedo situation. Arrax definitely did shoot first and did actually take a swipe at Vhagar. Vhagar doesn't respond too kindly to that little outburst and basically says, it's on.
Do you want some? I'll give it you. You want to do with me?
Vhagar comes through the clouds and chomps down on Arrax and Luke, and that's game over for those two. Neither dragon rider wanted their dragon to do what they eventually did, but that's why people say, stop fighting before someone gets hurt.
Won't somebody please think of the children?
Someone must have found a piece of dragon nutsack in the water or something, because news gets to Dragonstone. Daemon goes to Rhaenyra to tell her the news, and she looks into the fire and then turns around and gives us that look. And I love how this final shot mirrors the first episode's final shot and the difference of emotion between them. So thanks to a series of unfortunate events, the Dance of the Dragons has now begun. I thought this was a pretty enjoyable finale. I think there were moments in this episode as well as the last one where you could maybe question the character choices. And how we got to these big spectacle moments could have been a bit more planned out, but I think overall as a season, it's been a bloody good first season of House of the Dragon. They have covered quite a lot in these 10 episodes and they could have lingered maybe a bit longer here and there, but I think overall I've really enjoyed getting back into that Game of Thrones drama, that political drama. The show did a great job in terms of casting. There's been some great performances, especially Paddy as King Viserys. I have enjoyed this more contained story for season 1, as with season 2 we're going to start branching out a bit further. And they've done well in terms of fleshing out characters and building that foundation for what's to come next. I mean, characters like the Cargill twins, for example, they kind of got thrown in at the end here, but I'm sure in season 2 they'll get a bit more development, and I'm sure maybe even a clash between them as well. And also in season 2, I'll be interested to see how the new characters who are outside our core group here influence proceedings. But yeah, House of the Dragon is definitely one of the best shows I've watched this year. I mean, I didn't really have that much expectation going in. You know, after Game of Thrones season 8, I sort of wanted down from that. So you got to give credit to them as well for bringing a lot of people who were on that down all the way up to, you know, get back invested with Game of Thrones as a franchise. I think my favourite episode was episode 8 due to how well crafted Viserys' final scenes were. But what would you say your favourite episode is? Let me know that in the comments below, as well as your overall thoughts on the whole season. And when House of the Dragon returns, we'll be covering it once again, but in the meantime, on screen right now is a video which YouTube are recommending for you.